With a feigned humility, Kody Brown enters the spotlight as the cameras roll. He refers to it as an apology tour, but it seems practiced right away, as if it were a show written for his home audience rather than his kids. His tone is softened, his stance is intended to convey contrition, and his words are carefully chosen. However, there is an obvious hint of ego beneath the surface, a feeling that this is more about controlling the narrative than it is about mending wounds. Kody talks about errors, miscommunications, and the need to patch up damaged relationships. However, there is a lack of earnestness. His kids, who have experienced years of strained bonds and partiality, are more aware. They have witnessed him stand up for Robyn no matter what, even if it meant jeopardizing their relationship. While their own suffering was ignored, they have seen him alter history to preserve her reputation. This tour is purely for show, not for reconciliation. In an effort to lessen the criticism that has followed him online, Kody is attempting to appear to viewers as a better man. He wants to come across as responsible, yet responsibility is meaningless without action. When his children see the show, they reject it. They don't see this as their father expressing sincere regret. Their father is entertaining them. Thus, the scene is established at the start of Chapter 1. Kody Brown's apology tour is in progress, but it is already falling apart. The man at the center of it all is clinging to a story that no one is ready to believe, while the audience sees the fractures and the kids see the truth. Outside of Sister Wives, the response to Kody Brown's apology tour is swift and harsh. The carefully orchestrated sorrow, the selective retelling, and the way Kody presents himself as misunderstood rather than responsible are all recognizable patterns to viewers who have followed the family's journey for years. The internet community perceives it more as a staged act intended to soften his image than as a sincere attempt to mend connections. Commentary abounds on social media. Fans analyze every word and action, pointing out how meaningless Kody's apologies are. They see how he stays away from details, how he never really acknowledges the suffering his kids have gone through, and how his story constantly revolves around keeping Robyn safe. His children's words, "This isn't real," are echoed by a chorus of disbelief on the internet. For seasoned observers, the disparity is obvious. They recall the years of partiality, the broken relationships, and how Kody put all of his efforts into Robyn and her children while ignoring the worries of his elder children. They are refusing to let him off the hook as they watch him attempt to change history. The criticism becomes more abrasive, louder, and unrelenting. The focus of this chapter is the audience's reaction rather than Kody's performance. A community that has seen too much, recalled too much, and won't be hushed clashes with his attempt to control the story. The apology tour is not being accepted by the internet, and Kody's facade is beginning to show signs of weakness. Although the apology trip was intended to influence the public, the family's internal divisions were already apparent. Neither Mykelti nor her husband Tony remained mute. They spoke up, and the weight of their personal experiences was evident in what they said. They saw Kody's unexpected act of regret as a show rather than a breakthrough. Growing up, Mykelti had witnessed her father compromise himself to protect Robyn, frequently at the expense of his other children. She was too familiar with the pattern. Kody would either play the villain to shield Robyn from criticism or take the responsibility for Robyn's actions. She witnessed the same script being reenacted in this alleged apology tour. Tony mirrored the feeling as he stood firmly next to her. He didn't hold back when speaking. He emphasized that rather than resolving the family's issues, Kody's actions were causing half of them. It was manipulation, not reconciliation, when he insisted that his kids accept Robyn before he would accept them. Robyn's demand put her above everyone else, including his own children. The annoyance was more profound for Mykelti. She had witnessed her father behave differently in other contexts, such as on Special Forces, when he appeared more like himself without Robyn's continual influence. But the cycle continued at home. Excuses and deflections took the place of accountability. Mykelti and Tony's voices broke through the background in this chapter. Kody's skillfully constructed story did not persuade them. His feigned regret did not mislead them. Rather, they simply stated the facts. The harm was genuine, the conditions were harsh, and the apology was phony. The reality that Kody was making such an effort to conceal was reflected back by their words, which turned into a mirror. Ultimately, Kody Brown's apology tour revolves around one person, Robyn. She is the focal point of the narrative, not merely a supporting character. Kody has been certain for years that he is more loyal to Robyn than to anybody else, including his own kids. Robyn now acts as the gatekeeper in the delicate area where reconciliation ought to exist. Kody's message to his children is straightforward but devastating. They must accept Robyn if they wish to have a connection with Dad. Loving their father and wanting him to return to their lives is insufficient. The lady who, in their opinion, has been the obstacle separating them from the guy they once trusted must be accepted. That requirement is unachievable for many of the kids. Their suffering is closely linked to Robyn's existence, the favoritism that changed their family dynamic, and the years they spent witnessing their father stand up for her no matter what. Robyn herself doesn't lessen the impact. She imposes restrictions on reconciliation by using the word value, as if Kody's children's value were negotiable. The children had long felt that their father's love is no longer unconditional, and her remarks hurt because they confirm this suspicion. It is limited by Robyn's influence, filtered through her, and evaluated by her approval. The apology tour takes off its mask in this chapter. What ought to have been about mending broken relationships turns into a fight to keep Robyn in the family. It is evident to Kody's kids that he is completely devoted to her and that he would sacrifice himself for her. Robyn is not only a contributing factor. The issue is her. Additionally, the apology tour is guaranteed to fail as long as she is at the center. When Kody Brown declares his illness, the tenuous possibility of reconciliation is dashed. He informs his kids that they have to accept Robyn if they want a relationship with him. It is a demand, a line drawn in the sand, not a recommendation or a polite request. Furthermore, it is impossible for the children to breach that line. The deal breaker is this ultimatum. The children, who have already been harmed by years of neglect and favoritism, cannot just put their suffering aside in order to accept the lady they perceive as the cause of their divide. For them, Robyn is a symbol of all they lost, the reason their father distanced himself, and the crack in their family. They must reject their own reality if they are to accept her. However, Kody is not going to compromise. He expresses his unwavering devotion to Robyn and makes it apparent that he would not be the same without her. The apology tour becomes a test of loyalty when it should have been about healing and pure love. Many of his children leave because they are forced to choose between their father and their own boundaries. The crux of the dispute is revealed by the deal breaker. It has nothing to do with making amends, getting help, or reestablishing trust. It concerns Kody's inability to distinguish his identity from Robyn's. And reconciliation is impossible as long as that circumstance persists. The children are left with the terrible conclusion that their father's love has conditions as the apology tour crumbles under the weight of its own expectations. Mykelti and Tony were watching Kody Brown in a setting devoid of his typical defenses when they sat down to watch Special Forces, not just for pleasure. Robyn wasn't present for once, and the difference was noticeable. Kody looked raw, uneasy, and strangely more real on television. Without Robyn's unwavering guidance, he acted in ways Mykelti hadn't witnessed in a long time. He wasn't fabricating the story to protect Robyn from criticism or standing in for anyone. Rather, he had to face obstacles that required responsibility on his own. Mykelti saw it right away. Though still clumsy and imperfect, she caught glimmers of the father she had known. He took ownership of his mistakes, accepted responsibility for the strained bonds with his kids, and even admitted his part in the suffering they endured. It was dirty, awkward, and even strange, but it was real. As he watched with her, Tony too saw the change. This was not the Kody who returned home and changed the course of history in order to keep Robyn safe. For a minute, this man appeared capable of taking responsibility for his errors. They both knew it wouldn't last, though. Since the Kody they encountered in Special Forces was only there for a short time, the responsibility would disappear as soon as he got home and heard Robyn's voice. The father who acknowledged his mistakes on TV would return to being the one who insisted on Robyn's allegiance above everything else. This chapter transforms Special Forces into a mirror rather than just a reality program. It shows the two sides of Kody Brown: the man who can assume responsibility when Robyn's influence is removed, and the man who abandons that responsibility the instant he returns to her shadow. For the first time in years, Kody Brown gave himself permission to say things his kids had been dying to hear on Special Forces. He acknowledged his mistakes. He stated unequivocally that he was to blame for the strained bonds with his children. It was a short, frail, but unquestionably real moment. Kody appeared less practiced and more human after losing Robyn's constant presence. The defensive walls were dropped, the arrogance gone. He wasn't rewriting history to shield someone else, blaming the situation, or placing the blame on his kids. Rather, he faced the cameras and admitted that he had let them down. It was shocking to Kody, who was looking on from the outside. This was unlike the father she knew at home, the one who showed Robyn affection only after demanding allegiance. For a moment, this man bore the consequences of his errors without hesitation. It was imperfect, messy, and uncomfortable, but it was accountability. Nevertheless, a gloom descended upon them even as he spoke. When he got back home, Kody knew what would happen. She was aware that Robyn's influence would change his account, that responsibility would turn into justifications, and that the man who acknowledged his mistakes on TV would return to his protective and defending persona. Although it was brief, this moment of accountability was potent. It showed the sadness of Kody's reality, that accountability cannot exist in the world he has created with Robyn, as well as what he was capable of when left to confront himself. In actuality, Kody Brown exists in two different incarnations. The first is the man who viewers saw on Special Forces, deprived of Robyn's unwavering presence, made to stand alone, and briefly willing to own up to his mistakes. This Kody talked about accountability, admitted his mistakes, and exuded a rawness that was almost foreign. Yes, he had flaws, but at least he was prepared to look in the mirror. Then there is the second Kody, the one who goes back to Robyn's house. Accountability disappears under her shadow. The man who once acknowledged his errors becomes defensive and ready to change the narrative. He manipulates his story to absolve her of responsibility, twists his words to protect her, and insists that his kids accept her before they accept him. A steely determination that he is not the issue takes the place of the humility that is portrayed on television. Tony and Kody can clearly see both versions. They understand that the Kody at home is consumed by Robyn's influence, but the Kody who stood alone on Special Forces was more like the father Kody once knew. It seems as though he cannot function without her consent and cannot be held responsible unless she is not present. He is now defined by this duality. One Kody is able to see the truth and own his mistakes. The other is unable to distinguish his identity from Robyn's, and he is caught in a vicious circle of codependency. And the sorrow for his kids is obvious. The father they need only shows up when Robyn isn't there. Robyn quickly changed the narrative when Kody came home from Special Forces bearing the burden of the accountability he had displayed on camera. She sat next to him and spoke in terms that were reassuring but also deadly. She informed him that he was being too hard on himself and that he didn't have to apologize for things he said when he was angry. The brittle accountability Kody had accepted started to fall apart at that very moment. Robyn's assurances were meant to insulate him from remorse and the burden his kids so sorely needed him to take on, not to help him heal. She allowed him to disregard them, to think that his rage and his words were justified, rather than urging him to mend the shattered relationships. This was awful for the kids. After witnessing a brief moment of their father taking responsibility for his errors, Robyn's influence caused him to revert to denial. Her confidence turned into a wall, a gentle yet solid one, separating Kody from the responsibility his children had been longing for. It was obvious that Robyn's purpose was to keep Kody trapped in a cycle where his devotion to her took precedence over his duty to his family rather than to help him find reconciliation. And with each assurance, she drew him farther away from reality. leaving his kids outside, unseen and unheard, once more. When the concept of therapy first emerged, it appeared to be a tenuous lifeline, a chance for Kody Brown to mend fences with his kids and sit in a setting where healing might start and accountability could take hold. There was a brief hope that he would make the decision, that he would put peace before pride. Then Robyn said something. Her comments had a keen edge to them, even if they were wrapped in cool rationale. She informed Kody that treatment and re-establishing contact with his kids were only important if he thought those connections had value. It was a terrifying declaration that diminished his children from unbreakable links to negotiable assets. It had an instant impact. Kody retreated rather than embracing the prospect of mending. Robyn's framing allowed him to assess his children's value and determine whether they were worth the effort by comparing them to her acceptance. Once a means of recovery, therapy was turned into yet another barrier because of Robyn's influence and Kody's readiness to follow her example. The message was awful for the kids. Their father's love was no longer unconditional. Rather, it was conditioned, filtered via Robyn's endorsement, and contingent on whether he thought they were worth fighting for. The man who ought to have stood up for them once more abandoned them, as the promise of therapy faded into quiet. The prospect of reconciliation is dashed in this chapter. Kody chooses to forego therapy, which is his only opportunity to be honest with his kids, rather than because of circumstances. And as Robyn's comments resound in his ears, Kody retreats from recovery, leaving his kids to bear the burden of rejection once more. Robyn's words, reconciliation would only matter if Kody believed his children had worth, hung over the family like a shadow. Because it reduced the relationship between a father and his children to a business transaction, the statement had a deeper impact than any argument. Suddenly, love, which ought to have been unconditional, became conditional. This was awful for the children. The truth was finally revealed to them after years of witnessing their father put Robyn before them. In Kody's view, their value was no longer intrinsic. Instead, it was determined by Robyn's approbation, mediated via her influence, and balanced against her expectations. They would have to accept her if they wanted their father to accept them. Many of them were aware that they couldn't. The concept of reconciliation itself was tainted by this conditional interpretation. It slammed the door to healing shut rather than opening it. The kids realized that the cost was too great, regardless of how much they wanted their father back. They would have to accept the lady they perceived as the cause of their split, forget their suffering, and remove their boundaries. That was not feasible for them. Kody did not resist this reasoning as he was enmeshed in Robyn's world. He took it in, repeated it, and let his relationships be defined by it. This circumstance caused the already precarious apology tour to collapse. His kids were no longer just his kids. From Robyn's perspective, they were challenges to overcome, barriers to overcome, and connections to negotiate. The tragedy is revealed in this chapter. A father's love for his children has been reduced to conditional worth. And with that, the prospect of a genuine reconciliation disappears even more. Kody Brown's relationship with Robyn, which characterizes his every action, is at the center of his collapsing apology tour. It is more than just a marriage. It is a codependent relationship that influences his decisions, his speech, and even who he is. Kody is now Robyn's shield, his protector, and the person who takes the blame so Robyn never has to. He repeatedly assumes the villain role because he can't bear to let criticism affect her, not because he thinks he is incorrect. To maintain her reputation, he alters reality, accepts responsibility for her deeds, and rewrites history. By doing this, he forfeits his ties with his kids in exchange for her approval and their trust. This loop is then reinforced by Robyn. When he takes responsibility, she tells him he is too hard on himself and reassures him. Reconciliation is subject to her demands, and his children's value is conditioned on their acceptance of her. And Kody, who is firmly attached to her, agrees to these conditions without hesitation. Even if it means losing his family's affection, his commitment and loyalty are steadfast. Every contact, choice, and family break demonstrates this codependency. It is not concealed. Robyn is an indispensable part of Kody's life. He cannot act without her influence or love his kids without passing that affection through her. Their dynamic is further demonstrated during the apology tour, which should have been about healing, with Robyn reframing Kody's remorse and the children left behind. There is no denying the reality in this chapter. Robyn and Kody's relationship is more than just a partnership. It's a vicious cycle of mutual reliance. And he will never be able to make amends with his kids as long as that cycle persists. Kody Brown's eagerness to fill in for Robyn has been one of his most recurring behavioral patterns for years. It is consistent rather than subtle or sporadic. Every time there is a disagreement or she is blamed, Kody takes the initiative and accepts responsibility. In order to protect Robyn, he takes on the role of scapegoat, shield, and recipient of the criticism. The kids have repeatedly witnessed it. They see their father rewrite history by taking credit for choices that were not his own and stating that Robyn took the action when, in reality, he did. He plays the villain because he can't stand to let her be perceived as the cause of division, not because he thinks he is incorrect. He loses his reputation and, worse, his connections with his children as a result. The dynamics of the entire family are shaped by this covering, which goes beyond words. Kody upholds Robyn's requests for loyalty. Kody reiterates her demands for reconciliation. Kody agrees when she downplays the importance of his kids. His job as Robyn's defender takes precedence over his identity as a father. This is intolerable to the kids. They see right through the ruse, seeing that their father is defending her rather than standing up for them. He demonstrates that his love for Robyn is greater than his love for his family by growing further distant from them each time he fills in for her. The mask slips much further in this chapter. It turns out that Kody's apology tour was really another charade meant to absolve Robyn of responsibility rather than an attempt to reconcile. And the gap between father and children widens into a potentially unbridgeable gap with each concealment, deflection, and truth-sacrificing action. The apology tour was irritating for Michael T, not just meaningless. Growing up, she had witnessed her father go to great lengths to keep Robyn safe, even at the expense of his relationships with his other children. And as an adult, she was better able to recognize the pattern than before. His apologies sounded scripted, every move intended to protect Robyn rather than mend the rift between him and his children. She was deeply frustrated. She desired a father who was self-reliant, capable of accepting responsibility without avoiding it, and capable of unconditionally loving his kids. Instead, she witnessed a man who was so devoted to Robyn that he insisted on her acceptance before accepting his kids. This was manipulation, not reconciliation, in Michael T's opinion. Her perspective had only been honed by watching Special Forces. Without Robyn's steady influence, Kody had displayed glimmers of accountability on that episode. He took responsibility, acknowledged his mistakes, and briefly resembled the father she had remembered. But the cycle continued at home. After Robyn comforted him, pardoned him, and guided him, Kody reverted to his protective role and stopped providing the accountability his kids required. Michael T's annoyance was directed not only at her father, but also at Robyn. She witnessed how Robyn's influence influenced every decision, every statement, and every family rift. And she was aware that there would be no recovery unless her father broke away from that cycle. Michael T's voice breaks through the background noise in this chapter. She is frustrated by clarity rather than resentment. She recognizes the reality of her father's decisions, the price he paid for his love for Robyn, and the impossibility of reconciliation in those circumstances. This clarity is accompanied by a terrible realization. The father she craves might only be present when Robyn is not. The illusion had totally fallen apart by the time Kody Brown's apology tour came to a conclusion. What started out as an act of repentance turned out to be nothing more than damage control, a meticulously planned effort to change his reputation rather than make amends with his family. The audience, his kids, and even his few moments of accountability on Special Forces were unable to conceal the reality.